2.5 years apart, and she definitely left big shoes to fill in terms of setting the bar really high for me and anybody else that comes behind her. Even in high school, she was very committed to, I don't know if she ever got anything less than an A. She definitely epitomizes that quote, "Nothing's worth doing that you're not willing to be all in on." I think she's always had a passion for helping others, and there's nothing kind of too big or too small for anybody who needs something. She's the most inclusive and also believes that everyone's voice matters. I think, from an early age, that was just something that was part of her DNA. I could not be more proud.
I was working at a firm that published in the paper their new management team, and it was all men. And Michelle, who was general counsel of the Gap at the time, took it upon herself to call the chair of the firm, say to him, "This has to change." And you know what? In 1 year, it changed. And I began to think, this is someone I want to know more about. Here was a woman who understood what goals needed to be met in order to make changes in the legal industry to increase the representation of women and minorities, and she had a plan for getting there. And as a result, she became a force for change and the leader of that change.
Pretty early in my career, when she and I were working together, she asked me whether I might be interested in ever becoming a general counsel. And she took the time and energy to introduce me to and to make connections with for me and set up meetings for me with 3 female sitting general counsel. And that sort of, to me, exemplifies Michelle's style, which is it's real mentorship. It's not just sitting there and chatting with you. She's going probably beyond mentorship into what I'd call sponsorship. She's always been a champion of, and I believe has a passion for, supporting women and diverse lawyers across the profession. She's very involved back at her law school, UCLA, in helping impact diversity in the law school and helping women in law school and diverse law students, get their first job as a launching pad. I do not consider it exaggeration to say that I am here in my current role and current career trajectory because of her.
So I first met Michelle when I was a fellow board member in 2013. She was incredibly generous and friendly. I think that's the unique thing about Michelle. She has a special way of making those who are not her peers feel welcome. She's the type of person who knows how to be a cheerleader, and then at the same time being a cheerleader, she's a great leader and a teacher. And I honestly don't think that I would have been nearly as successful without Michelle my first 9 months as a board chair. Those who are great leaders, there is much responsibility that comes with that leadership. And she is someone who really takes that seriously. She's great at championing women who otherwise would not have a champion. She has a seat at the table. She's going to use that to create other seats for other women who necessarily would not have that opportunity.
There is no one more inspiring to me in the legal profession than Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She received a Margaret Brent Award in 1993. Justice Ginsburg reached the highest levels of our profession while always staunchly seeking to advocate for the women in our profession. She had a famously positive relationship with 2 men, her husband, lawyer Marty Ginsburg, and fellow Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, an unlikely friend. I would like to follow in the footsteps of Justice Ginsburg and talk about men and unlikely friends. But first, a few personal thank yous. I'm privileged to be on this stage with these incredibly talented and impressive women. It's awe-inspiring to sit up here. I want to thank the past and present members of the Commission on Women. It's been my pleasure to be your colleague, and I'm very honored that you selected me. I am really grateful to be surrounded by friends and family here It's special to get this award in my hometown, San Francisco. I can't individually thank all my friends and family that are here, but please know that I greatly appreciate you being here. I must take a moment to give a few special shout-outs. My dear sisters-in-law, Bobby Liebenberg and Pat Gillette, who nominated me for this award. Jean Lee, who worked on me for years to get me to agree to be nominated. Nancy A. Bell and Jesse Kornberg, who flew in today just to be here with me. My Gap Inc. manager, sponsor, and constant mentor, who has not stopped mentoring me all these years later, Lori Shanahan. Some of you may not realize this event is competing with a special San Francisco tradition and institution, the Outside Lands Music Festival. We are all in the wrong place today. That is where my 18-year-old son and nephew are. That's why they're not here with my support. But all the other members of my immediate family are here, as they are for me every day of my life, so thank you. The 10 years I was the global general counsel of a Fortune 500 company were not easy. It took a lot of support and help to be successful. Not the least of which was my incredibly talented legal team at Gap, 10 of whom are here today, so thank you. I also want to give particular thanks to my sister Yvette Hetrick, who you heard from the video. She's been my best friend forever. Special thanks to my mom, Yvonne Niven, who's the most generous and loving parent someone could have. My aunt, Pauline Biorengo, who is always there for my family. And my husband of 21 years, Lee Banks. He is my own Marty Ginsburg. Although Lee may never forgive me for leaving the Golden State Warriors for Gap, as he says, we gave up floor seats for half off on jeans. As RBG stated, I had a life partner who thought my work was as important as his, and I think that made all the difference. Until I joined Gap in 2006, I never had a manager or mentor who was a woman. For 15 years, I was professionally trained, supported, and inspired by male lawyers, such as Kurt Maeda, Robert Townsend, and Robin Baggett. Maeda-san took a big risk on me. He hired me to be the first woman lawyer to work in the legal department of one of Japan's largest corporations. And then as my boss, he fiercely advocated for me. He told everyone not only did they have to work with me, they had to listen to me. He proudly proclaimed that I was the deal lead, even in rooms full of older male Japanese bankers. This was 1992. When people asked how they should deal with the first lawyer who was also a woman at a Japanese company, he told them to treat me exactly as they would a man. On my first day in Tokyo, he very publicly gave me a locker that I really didn't know what to do with. But the symbolism was important. Men had lockers, women served tea. I often hear and read now, particularly in light of the Me Too movement, that men are avoiding women in the workplace. I challenge the men in this room to do the opposite. If a male lawyer could successfully sponsor the first woman professional to work at a large Japanese corporation in Tokyo, I am confident that every man in this room can figure out a way to support women in the United States in 2019. In Tokyo, it was obvious. If Maeda-san had not stepped up and paved the way, no one would. Here it is less obvious, but just as important. Men are in the positions of power in our institutions, whether it's government, law firms, corporations, or otherwise. Whether you call it he for she, good guys, men in the mix, it's really important. It is absolutely essential that we have men championing women individually and the rights of women generally. It will be the way to make a difference. 20 years after I was their first woman lawyer, my friend Claire Chino became the general counsel of Itochu Corporation. She was not only the first female head of the legal department at Itochu, she was the first woman and the youngest officer ever at a Japanese trading company. I screamed out loud in my Gap office the day I got an email that Claire had taken over. It will not surprise you that Maeda-san was her boss and sponsor as he was mine. The first thing I did when I got in my car to drive home was call my mom, and I shared the story, and I cried, tears of joy and tears of relief. One of the first things I did when I retired from Gap in 2016 was take my son, my husband, and my parents to Tokyo to meet Claire and Maeda-san. Visiting them at Itochu was the highlight of every member of my family's trip to Japan and China to celebrate my corporate retirement. Today, Claire is the CEO of Itochu International, and my time in Tokyo and the small part that I played in opening the door for women lawyers there is the highlight of my career. Thank you.